I feel like Mars. Ooh, I feel smooth tonight. Yeah, I might just take your one. Ooh, yeah, just take home with me tonight. Yeah, don't I look good with my suit on? You said you like my no cologne. Oh, I saw you watching from across the road. Yes, you made sure that I saw you. Sexy lady, you sure look fine. I don't mind giving you all my time. I feel like mine. Oh, I feel smooth tonight. Yeah, I might just take your one. Yeah, just take home with me tonight. Yeah, once we get home in my room. One thing that I can promise, satisfaction guaranteed. Oh, girl, I be smoking. Do you get high? Let's go roll this backward, girl. Let's go touch the sky. Yeah, we're hot, baby.
Speaking your language, yeah.
I stood up and popped my collar, 'cause I'm feeling smooth. I feel like mine. Oh, that's all, yeah. I might just take your one. I might just take you home with me tonight. Keep on going. I won't stop you. I feel like Marvin. Yeah. Oh, I won't stop you. Oh.
Peace and good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Yananomics podcast show Don't Tell, facilitated and created by the beautiful, the wonderful, the talented Miss Tashala Williams, poet, writer, performer. Oh, yeah. So, Show Don't Tell is a foundational key to giving your story more life, a writer's tool to building more details into what you create. You will learn practical ways to build your story out tonight. Hi, and welcome, sis. How are you tonight?
I am feeling good this Tuesday, Teach Me Tuesday, with the
Yes.
Yananomics podcast. I'm feeling good. I'm
Good.
excited. I'm excited.
Me
I get
too.
to
I am
talk
so
about something
excited.
I enjoy.
Right? And okay, so you're the second facilitator to do 3 workshops. Like, thank you, sis. You was in the
You
Hall of
are
Fame.
welcome.
Yes. I love it. And every single workshop you've done so far has been amazing. So please do tell the people a little bit about yourself, sis.
Well, I am Tashala, for those who don't know. Tashala Williams, as she mentioned, I am an author, poet, performer, community member, parent, um, all those good things wrapped up into one. And I'm just here to share one of the things that I'm most passionate about, which is writing fiction. Everyone's heard poetry, but I really love stories. So, yeah, we're going to talk about writing stories.
Yay! Yes. So
Yay!
for anybody that was listening when we first started, that song is by Prince DJ and it's called Marvin. So big ups to the urban, oh goodness, what is the name of it? Urban let's see, let me get the name of it so I get it right.
Yup, yup. That's always good.
Oh my
That song
goodness.
was
I can't
smooth
think of the
too.
name off the top of my head at this moment. Oh, no, no, no. I'm going to get this right.
She is. She's going to get it right
I'm
now
going to get it right
because we want
too.
y'all to be able to find the song and look it up and stream it,
Yes,
right? Get his streams up. Show
exactly.
some love. That
Okay.
thing
Oh,
is
yes.
smooth.
Big up to the urban influencer. It's a platform that highlights the music of independent artists, and I am a part of their roundtable call. And so, if there are any artists that would like to have their music seen and heard, and all these beautiful things, do hit up Mr. James Lewis. Yes, and make sure you guys look up Prince DJ. That's DJAE, and the song is called Marvin. Sis, I'm gonna let you do your thing now.
Okay. I'm going to share my screen. All right. Show, don't tell. And she did mention I'm Tashala. Few things about me. I enjoy being a board member of the Greater Hartford Arts Council. I am the parent chair of the School Governance Council for Weaver High School. So if you're a parent of a Weaver High School student and you want to express yourself, holla at your girl. Zone 1 leader for the Family and Community Advisory Council for the Board of Education and executive co founder of Hartford's Lit. Okay, what are we here to learn? We are here to understand what it means when we say showing versus telling in fiction. And fiction is a made up story. Basically, it is a story that is not true. And there are various types of fiction. So for right now, we're just going to deal with fiction. You want to be able to identify ways to be more descriptive with your work. You want to know when and when not to tell. And then you want to practice what you know. It's always great to learn, but it's even better when you are able to apply what it is that you've learned. Now, show Don't Tell is a popular piece of creating writing advice to write with more sensory details, allowing your reader to hear, see, taste, touch, and smell the same things your characters are experiencing. Telling. Telling means that you, the author, give your readers conclusions and interpretations. You tell them what to think instead of letting them think for themselves. And oftentimes, if telling is done too much, it doesn't make the reading that enjoyable. Um, it's harder to build suspense because you're giving up all the details, as opposed to painting us a picture and walking us through a scenario. Showing means that you provide your readers with enough concrete, vivid details so that they can draw their own conclusions. Now, what we're going to do is look at examples. That's the best way to gain understanding, is to dive right in. So if you're writing and you're trying to figure out how you can build your story up or you want to add some meat to it, um, One thing I like to do is go through and see how many times I'm repeating certain words. If certain words are coming up too much, you need a thesaurus. Yes, online is nice, but I like to be able to pick up a thesaurus right next to me and see how many ways I can say a word. So, in our first example, the sentence says, Mary was angry. That's clear. She was angry. Okay, what's next? Right? Here is an example of showing. Mary slammed the door shut as she stormed into the room, causing a lamp to fall, her breath heaving against her chest as her eyes scoured every corner. She slammed the doors hard enough for stuff to fall. And when you are discussing someone's emotion, you want to consider where your character is. When you're writing, everything becomes a part of what you're creating, meaning everything that the character is experiencing, because you're telling the character's story. So if the character needs to get from point A to point B, how is that character getting there? Can they walk? Is it too far? Is it raining outside? Is the weather preventing them from getting from A to B? And if none of that is important, then why are we walking from A to B in the first place? Just start at B. Unless there's something along the point that's vital to the story. A lot of what you include in your story should in some way move the plot forward. So, in order to not get lost in telling your reader everything, you describe what's happening. You include the surroundings as part of your description. So in our example, we find out that Mary slammed the door, causing a lamp to fall. Okay, Mary's going into a room. Now, we don't know if she's in an office building or in a house, but we know that she is in a room where she can slam a door hard, and she made a lamp fall. So obviously, she put some fire on that thing, and she's upset. Or we've given enough clues to allow your reader to conclude that the character is upset. That's how you include your reader in the process and have them being pulled along by your story, because you're not telling them Mary was angry. Now they're waiting for you to tell them the next thing. Instead, you are explaining the whole picture. Let's go back to our slide. So, Mary slammed the door shut as she stormed into the room, causing a lamp to fall, her breath heaving against her chest as her eyes scoured every corner. Let's try another one. Example number 2. It was obvious he wanted to pick a fight. That's pretty straightforward, right? It was obvious he wanted to pick a fight. But how can we make that more? How can we extend that statement so that we're not just putting it in the reader's lap, but we're guiding them along a path? Let's try this. What did you just say? Snarling, he stepped forward right into John's space. Mm. First off, nobody likes anybody to get in their space. So the fact that you're into John's space already says that you were a little too close for comfort, right? And the one thing that I like is dialogue. Dialogue is a great way to describe a situation because most of the times you'll have one character contemplating something, or you'll have two or more characters who have various different objectives trying to persuade one of the other characters to give them what they need. So here we know that we have two characters and one just stepped into the other character's face. I don't know about you, but I'm going to want to know what happens next, right? Because whoever is talking is upset and he's snarling. And snarling is a great example of a way to use a descriptive word that isn't common. That's why I say it's always great to have a thesaurus close by, so that you can play with different words that allow you to describe a person, a place, or thing, or situation that's happening within your story. So, here are some common red flags that indicate you're telling as opposed to showing. The first red flag is you're drawing conclusions. It was obvious he wanted to pick a fight. That statement has drawn the conclusion that it was obvious the character wanted to pick a fight. You don't want to do that too often. The second red flag is abstract language. She checked the man's vital signs. Okay, who checked the man's vital signs? Is she authorized to check the man's vital signs? You want to let your reader know what's going on here and who's actually doing the doing. Summaries. I found the body in the back of the truck. Very to the point, but there's always a better way to tell your story. And another red flag is backstory. I tested the car to see if it would start. It didn't. So the red flags are conclusions, abstract language, summaries, and backstory. Now, this is how we fix the red flags. For the first one, in terms of coming to conclusions, it was obvious he wanted to pick a fight. It was a part of our examples in the beginning. And we had dialogue and we used the word snarling. For the second example, she checked the man's vital signs. You could change that to she bent and placed two fingers to his neck. A faint pulse throbbed between her fingertips. That says a little bit more because now you have an idea of what kind of pulse. Is this person dead? What's happening here? And you get a picture of exactly what she's doing. So instead of just saying she checked for vital signs, you know that she's bent and she placed two fingers on his neck. So she's close to his upper body. He's on the ground, or I can assume that, but the description allows me to paint a better picture of what's happening in the story. The next one was summaries. Oops, go the other way. I found the body in the back of the truck. The fix for that could be I climbed in the back of the truck and peeled back the tarp. A sickening sweet stench made me stumble back, sightless eyes staring back at me. I pressed a hand to my mouth, smothering a scream. That's giving you some good information. We know that the character had to climb into the truck. We know that there's a tarp, so the tarp is covering the body. We know that it stinks. The character fell back. The eyes are open, and the character can't scream. So it's either nighttime or they someplace they're not supposed to be. But all of these extra details about the area, you can make space a character in your story. This truck could continuously be mentioned throughout this story. This truck could have been handed down from the grandfather. Just so many things that you can do with various parts of what you include inside of your story. But everything is designed to move your story along so that you can tell what is happening to the character and bring us from beginning to end. The last example was backstory. So, stop that. It's going too far. Okay. I tested the car to see if it would start. It didn't. What you would say instead could be, I turned the key in the ignition. A click, click, click noise drifted up from the engine. I smashed my fist on the dashboard. Damn it. That gives you suspense because you know that the character wants the car to start, but it's not starting. And we all know that click, click, click. Y'all know that click, click, click. That click, click, click be the alternator. Car woes. I'm telling you. But you see how it created a sense of anxiety and suspense about what was happening with the character, just in our being able to experience the click, click, click. We know that sound. Now we're including sound inside of our description. So we have descriptive words like snarling. We can describe sounds like an engine that isn't turning over. Um, we could also use silence, eerie silence, deathly quiet, as opposed to saying it was quiet. You can say it was quiet, or you could say it was deathly quiet for midnight in my yard. Now you know where I am, you know what time it is, and you know that this is not your normal kind of quiet. All of these allow for a picture to be painted inside of your reader's mind. Okay, let's go back to our slide. Now I can bring my little brother up that I can't run it to. Okay, so the art of showing. One of the ways that you can exercise the go back art of showing. Oh, we just okay. Now see, this is when you want to pull your little switch out and beat your computer. I'm gonna take a sip of my drink. Alrighty, the art of showing. When you're showing, you want to engage the five senses, all five senses, to give the point of view of the character. Now, the cool thing about that is sometimes your character does not know. The reader can know, but when you're describing the situation in the scenario, your character can sometimes not know what they're walking into. Oftentimes, you might have something like Detective Smith knew the killer went into the building. As he walked in, and this is describing, so I've changed the whole point of view. Or it could be, I saw the suspect run down the alley. I knew he couldn't have gotten far. The alley he went down was a dead end. When I got into the alley, there were two doors, left or right. I decided to go left. And as soon as I did, something hit me in the back of the head. Boom! Right? That's it. That's that character's point of view. So the extent of what you can see with that situation ends when the character can't see anymore. So that's another fun thing about being able to tell a story is engaging all of your senses in order to give the point of view of that character. Use strong dynamic verbs. Active, not static words. You don't want words that don't move. You want exciting words. You want descriptive words. You want words that dig into or stretch your reader's thinking or their understanding of what reality is, because in fiction, this is your world. But you have to make sure it makes sense. So you want to make sure that everything is connecting the way it should. But as you are telling that story, you want to use strong, dynamic verbs. You also want to use concrete nouns. Be specific as opposed to generic. A lot of times in writing, if we haven't really done our research, that's why some writers or some believe that you should only write what you know. But I feel like if you're creating fiction, you can write what you hope for. You can write what you dream of or what you're afraid of, and or you can just write a hero story. I love a good hero. So when you are describing things, you want to talk about the sidewalk or the color of the door. When I got to the house, it was weird because the house was uh, dark, a deep dark gray, but not quite black. And the door was red, a blood red, with the weirdest handle I've ever seen. It looked like a hand and it made me not want to touch it. I'm describing a door. Concrete nouns, be as specific as possible as opposed to being generic. Generic would be I walked to the house and it had a red door. You don't know what kind of door, so I'm not really excited about it or afraid. I'm just listening to you talk, which is how it feels when you don't have descriptive words and you're not really giving your reader a sense of how your character's feeling as they go into these various situations. And another art of showing is to break activities down into smaller parts, which is what we did when we talked about she checked her vital signs. She checked the man's vital signs. That is a generic way. Um, you've got some pretty static verbs. She checked the man's vital signs, as opposed to she bent over and placed two fingers on his neck to find a weak pulse. Now you have all kinds of descriptive words and you actually have a picture of what the character is doing. So instead of saying in general that she checked the vital signs, you've broken that down to the steps that needed to be taken in order for that task to be complete. So instead of the broad, she checked the vital signs, you have the character bending over, you have the character using two fingers, placing them on the neck, and finding a weak pulse. So not only did she check the vital signs, but we know that it's a vital situation, right? Because the pulse is weak, which leads us to the next step. It leads us into what's happening within your story. Next, I have two examples of descriptive mastery. Um, the queen of descriptive mastery is the great Toni Morrison. This lady turned a conversation into a character, and I was blown away, and I've just been in love ever since. And then, of course, we have The Sign of Four by author Conan Doyle. I am a Sherlock Holmes fan. That's right, I said it. So I will read Tony's example from Beloved first. Men and women were moved around like checkers. Anybody Baby Suggs knew, let alone loved, who hadn't run off or been hanged, got rented out, loaned out, bought up, brought back, stored up, mortgaged, won, stolen, or seized. So, Baby's 8 children had 6 fathers. What she called the nastiness of life was the stock she received upon learning that nobody stopped playing checkers just because the pieces included her children. Wow. So we've got metaphors. We have a description of a situation. We know how many children are here. We know how many fathers are here. We know that folks still get played like checkers. So you have this, even with this excerpt, you have a description of what's happening, um, as well as what the struggle is, right? Because now you like, dang, these a lot of kids and a lot of baby daddies. What is happening? And that's the question that you always want your reader to ask. Not to the point where they're like, what the hell going on here? But to the point where you have them engaged suspensefully, or you are pulling them into your realm and you have them wondering, okay, what is happening with this character? What's going to happen with them next? I can't put this down until I find out how this character gets out of this situation. Our next example: so swift, silent, and furtive were his movements, like those of a trained bloodhound picking out scent, that could not but think what a terrible criminal he would have made had he turned his energy and sagacity against the law instead of exerting them in its defense. What have we learned? So swift, silent, and furtive were his movements. So we know he was fast, and he was quiet, and he was focused in how he moved. And then he's being compared to a bloodhound, and we know a bloodhound sniffs you out and finds its mark based on holding on to that scent. That's who they had trying to find the slaves that ran away, bloodhounds, amongst others. And in thinking about how swift, silent, and furtive his movements were, he couldn't help but think what a terrible criminal he would have made if he would have turned his energy against the law instead of exerting them in its defense. It would be the flip of a coin. He'd be a monster. But we learned that because of how his method of finding out the truth is described. We don't know what he looks like, but we know he's a bloodhound. And whatever it is, he's working in the defense of law. And this is the way that you want it, because if he was on the other side of the law, he'd be a problem. We get over that from that little piece. Now, what if you just said he was good? He was a good detective. And that was all you said. And the detective went to find the killer who killed the lady that they found that morning. That's not very engaging. I don't even want you to like gossip and tell me that story. However, when you start to talk about him being swift, silent, and furtive in his movements, again, this is why it is always lovely to have a thesaurus close by. So you can find different ways to describe everyday words. Just it's the English language is very colorful with the ways that you can use words. It can be very confusing, no doubt, because you got some words that sound the same but mean two totally opposite different things. Words that sound the same are spelled different. So yes, I see how challenging it can be, but at the same time, I do enjoy when someone describes something beautifully or in a clever way. Okay. Must you rigorously obey? See, it's crazy because most of the times people teach you something and then they say, all right, scratch that. Write your story. No. But according to Gary Fink, award winner and author of over 30 works of fiction, show don't tell isn't a rule. And there are exceptions. I spelled that wrong. But nearly every fiction writer benefits by following that advice. I no more want to be told by a writer than to be told by authority figures and institutional representatives. The pleasure of reading is in the discovery. There it is. That one sentence. It sums it all. The pleasure of reading is in the discovery. The master of suspense for me is Alfred Hitchcock because I like murder mysteries. We'll wrap this up and then I'll go to Hitchcock. Vivid imagery certainly connects your reader with the world they're familiar with, one that they experience with their five senses. Is Hemingway right when he says, show the readers everything, tell them nothing? One thing is clear: fiction needs to immerse readers in a story world. Fiction isn't real life, but it must give us a profound sense of real life. Now, as I was saying, I love Hitchcock. He's the master of suspense. And the beautiful thing about how he would weave suspense is that he would create situations that maybe not all the characters are aware of, but the watchers are aware of. So in our sense, in a literary sense, we as the reader would know, but the characters don't know. And we're just like, oh my God, what is going to happen? So there's this one, I'm just kicking my legs. There's this one Hitchcock short that I saw that stays in my head because it was it was masterfully suspenseful. So it's in black and white, and this husband and wife and their son are at the food cart on a train. So they're at the food cart on the train. There's an older gentleman there, and the radio was playing. So everybody's talking and chatting, and then there's another guy that is close to the couple, and they're all talking. So the little kid has on a cowboy outfit, a cowboy hat, and he five. He on a train. He don't want to be still. He like mommy, 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 right? But the grown people are trying to have a conversation. Meanwhile, on the radio, as these people are talking, a man has escaped from the mental institution, and they're saying that they need you to be on the lookout, right? So that goes off on the radio. But the people in the car are not paying attention because they're so engaged in their story. Little boy's still going wild. Train breaks down, completely stops on the mountain in the middle of a snowstorm, and it's a crazy man on the loose. Well, I will say there's a man who escaped the mental institution on the loose. And little boy is just hype, hype, hype. So the man that's talking to his parents says, I'll give you this Indian head nickel if you can be quiet for 5 minutes. And little boy is like, what? Meanwhile, the train has stopped and there's a man outside the window. And the only person that sees the man is the little boy. But he can't talk because he wanted the Indian head nickel. When I tell you, I'm sitting there like, yeah, are they gonna get the train going? Is this man gonna get on the train? Are they gonna let the little boy talk? But so much was happening. The description of the people didn't matter outside of the 5-year-old boy because you created pictures of them on your own as I told the story. But I didn't tell you everything. I pulled you along because I needed to set it up because I needed you to feel what I felt when I watched the show. Practical application. There's snow. The train broke down. This little boy got energy through the roof, and all the parents want to do is talk. But on the radio, the man escaped. All of this is the joy I get from telling stories, which is why I'm really, really excited about releasing some short stories this year, even some horror stories, science fiction, all that good stuff. Because it is important to tell stories with heroes. And I need more heroes that look like me and sound like me and handle business like I handle business. I just need that. And as we go through our creative growth as a community, I'm just inspired by all that I see. And it just creates a more urgency for everyone to be able to tell the stories that are in their head. Because some people have children's stories, some people have young adult stories. I'm like, man, I need my version of Indiana Jones. Can I get it? Can I go on an adventure in the pyramids? Can somebody decipher some found hieroglyphics that lead to some lost knowledge that's now found because they decide, you know what I'm saying? I want to do that for me. I want it to look like how it's supposed to look, like me in the desert. Can somebody redo Gods of Egypt? Because ew. But that's what we're here for. To create stories, to paint pictures that children can relate to and understand. So this is me telling you how to show, don't tell. Yay.
Yay! Thank you so much for that, Tashala. Like, that was so good. It was like right to the point. It was like you painted a picture for me just in this workshop. Like, I felt like I got so much value from that because naturally I'm a good writer. Like, I love to write. I love to tell stories. I love to engage people in that way. But like you putting it into words and like disseminating the steps made it like, oh, okay, so yeah, like engaging all the senses and using certain verbs and being mindful about the nouns you use and things like that. Like, it's like it all makes sense, because I'm always trying to give people a feeling when they're reading something that I've written. And I'm even because it's like it's interesting because all depending on what the purpose is of your writing will depend on which of these things you should really pull in, but at the same time, it's still all relevant,
Yes.
to the
Yes.
um to your message basically. You want people to feel where you're coming from, what you're saying. But I love when you were talking about like the suspense of it, and building that and some of the examples that you gave. One of my favorite writers. When I read one of their books, I was just like, oh my god, and that was Octavia Butler, and like she had me like, what in the world? Like you could just feel like you were there. And but at the same time, it's just like it's so scary. You don't want to be there, in some of her writings, you just like, I don't even know. Like, but she was just so good at painting that picture for you of what was happening. Now the one I read was Lilith's Brood.
Mm-hmm.
And like her language, and some people write certain ways. Like I was actually most recently reading Alice Walker's The Temple of My Familiar. And it's supposed to kind of be like the follow up to The Color Purple and everything. But some of her stuff I have to go back and reread. And because everybody doesn't express themselves the same, it's almost like when you write, certain people will get it right away and other people have to reread it. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like
Right,
interesting
right.
when you
Because
read
you
how
can
that works.
identify with a certain time period. So I know a lot of times I would get discouraged with Alice or Tony when they would change and it would be this really, really old school Southern dialect. And I'd
Mhm.
be like, oh, well, I struggled through that one. I
Right,
need I need the
right.
Ebonics version. Let me go on and listen to this on Audible. But at the same time, this is the language that our people spoke in.
Yeah.
This was them. And this is how, this is how they communicated. So sometimes I could catch it, but if you didn't have like, some big mamas and some papas and some cotton pickers and some fields and some chickens and like all that Alabama, Mississippi, North Carolina, peanuts, collard if you didn't have all of that, and so you wouldn't even
Yes.
understand what you were reading. Like I have some cousins that talk so fast, I be sitting there like, I come through the door, huh? Huh?
Right.
Slow down. I said, how you doing? Oh, that's what you
It's funny you say that, right? It's a couple of things that come to mind. I have, because my family is from the South, right? And I got some old school people in my family. And I remember one time my cousin, he says something to me like they talk in parables and riddles and shit, right? So he's like saying something to me and he's like, oh, you know what I mean? And he looking, I'm like, no, actually, I don't know what you mean. I have no idea what you're trying to express right
not a
now.
clue.
But in his mind, he thought like I was just like trying to be funny, like,
Oh
in
wow.
he feel like he's clear about what he's saying and what he's expressing. And I'm just like, I have no idea. And then you make me also think about when I was working in the nonprofit sector in the anti-sexual violence field, and they thought it was a good idea to read Push, which Precious is the film adaptation of the book Push.
Mm.
And there's a lot of slang
Triggered.
in there. There's a lot of language that, like, the executive director at the time, she could not follow. She had no idea what was going on. I could read it with no problem. I was like, oh, I know exactly what she's saying. I could feel where she was coming from. Like, I knew it all, right?
Yep.
And it lets you know the power of language. right? When we think about different dialects and, we think about patois, we think about, Haitian Creole, even though that's a different language. However, there are still different dialects of one language,
Mhm.
Geechee people, they speak a whole nother different dialects. So
Yeah.
it's just so interesting how language and culture plays a role in how you bring a story to life
Yes.
and
Yes, it does.
how a person can or cannot connect with that story based off of that language, that culture that's
And
in
it's
the.
wild because it's a double edged sword. Because I've had a lot of authors who my daughter Naomi had a professor at Wesleyan. Um, I think her name is Tiffany Unique. I have one of her books on my shelf, but she's from Barbados, and the first book she had the Barbados dialect in it, and the publishers didn't want it. They were like, you need to change that because nobody's going to be able to understand that. And in her mind, her audience would be able to understand that. But at the
Mhm.
time, the publishing company was like, well, we got our 1, 2, 3 black people quota right now, so we really don't need that. But if you change the language so it's easier for the mainstream to read, then we'll publish it. And I believe Toni Morrison dealt with that as well. Even in doing the early Southern slavery dialects, because a lot of times mainstream is looking for what they can sell, and we are literally trying to tell people's story. Like it's a
Mhm.
lot of it's Native American stories we don't know.
Mhm.
It's Puerto Rican stories we don't know. It's Mexican stories we don't know. It's West African stories we don't know. It's first generation stories we don't know. But they here going through it, and they have people that can relate to it, but ain't nobody putting it on paper. Or
Yeah.
those that want to put it on paper aren't putting it on paper well. So,
Mhm.
you want to make sure that we have the resources that we need within our community to help people tell their stories.
It's so true, and it's interesting because these days they have, like, you can go on the internet. I know you said you love your thesaurus and you like your books and your tangibles, you know what I'm saying? But the thing about it's interesting because now, like, say if you want to understand a particular word that you don't understand, like from a different culture, you could go right online and find out what that word means and get the context of what you're looking for. So now we really don't have any excuse not to venture out to writings and things that might be outside of our culture because we have so many people who want us to know what they're trying to say and what they're trying to the story they're trying to tell. And I even think about some of the songs that I like to listen to that are like African, what do they call it? Like Afro reggae kind of thing.
Afro,
Kind of going on,
yeah,
like the fusion of the African music with the reggae and stuff like that. And they use a lot of words that you have to kind of figure out through the context of the
yeah,
song what it means, because they might switch it up. They're gonna use, like, I think one of them is one of the words they use is like wahala is one of the words, and I said that gotta mean like different parties, and like I had to figure it out through the context of the song.
right, right, right,
So
right.
it's just really interesting. And um like we just have so many resources basically these days to help us to be able to understand and decode other people's stories from other cultures and be able to connect with it and things like that. And I feel like this workshop was so important to, especially for those who are interested in being better writers, being better storytellers and things like that, because it's not really about going with what the general public will love. It's really about just telling the story as authentically as you possibly can. And like you said, even if it's fiction, it's about making fiction feel like it's real life. And when you can do that, you could bridge that gap with whatever it is that you trying to write about. Like that's what it is. At the end of the day, making people feel something from what you're writing, from what you're sharing, from what you're experiencing. And like I said, even the way you put the workshop together made me feel something. So I just appreciate you in your art, in your education, like how you educate, how you just be teaching, sis. And I love it. Like I always feel so immersed in everything that you bring to the table. And I just thank you for that. I thank you so, 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 so much for your passion.
Hey, I have fun, and it is something that I enjoy. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to share space and run my mouth for a little while.
Yes, yes. And I could tell that, this is something that you really love. And I be seeing you all over the internet. I see now you are about to do some Ruby Realm stuff. You got
Yes,
some
we
things. You got some things going on. I tried
yeah.
to get on one thing that you were doing recently. It was like a collective, and I could not get on. It's like I could not find it on the website to partake in it. But like you doing a little bit of everything. I'll let you know exactly what it was. Because I went to the website and everything, and I did not see it. And actually, what they do is like it was maybe like a week ago. It was something you were doing. I know you do so much.
On
You,
policing, was it roots, wounds, and words?
yes, it was a policing one. I
Yeah,
couldn't find how to get
yeah. You
connected
gotta
with
you
it.
gotta look around on their website. Instagram is probably the best way
Okay,
to connect.
that's probably what it was
But
then.
yeah,
Okay.
that was fun because that was for Black femmes who did the workshop, which was entitled "On Policing," and it just
Mhm.
talked about Black people's relationship and encounters with being policed. And so you just have
Mhm.
Black femmes talking about situations where they've experienced being arrested or saw someone they love being arrested, and it was just raw. It was some
Mm.
real shit, and
Right. I can only
it was
imagine how
really
tough that
good.
got.
Yeah, it was so heavy. The organizer is Nicole Dewan Jr. And she my fault, they had someone working on breath control um in between
Mm.
because it was so heavy.
Wow.
So it was just like,
Wow.
okay, we're gonna have these conversations, but let's kind of like recenter ourselves. And that was so beneficial because it was a heavy topic, but I enjoyed it a lot. I always enjoy it because you go to the workshops and you produce this work, and then they create a space where you can perform your work. So
Right. I
yeah,
love
it's
it,
very
sis. I
excited.
love
I
it
like it too.
100%. Yeah, everything that you've been a part of and you've been doing, just brings me so much joy to just see that people find the value in what it is that you bring to the table. And I just love that so, 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 so much. Now, do you have anything coming up in the near future? What you got going on, sis? Like tell the people what you got going on.
Um, so I gotta find the flyer, but I have Ruby's Realm is getting ready for our next production, which will
Okay.
be at the Mark Twain House in May. We have our auditions on Saturday. This Saturday, auditions will be in New Britain. Um,
Okay.
Check my IG page for the flyer, but I
Okay.
will
Okay.
post it
Okay.
again just so that people have it. I'm working with the Poets Notes on March 11th, which is Friday. They are doing a Poets pop up. and they are doing it for teenage poets, young poets. So the Poets Pop Up is going to take place at the Devil's Gear Bike Shop in New Haven, which is at 845. I don't know if it's Chapel or Chappelle Street, but
Chapel.
Chapel, thank you. 8845 Chapel Street. Some of the sponsors are Poets to the Round Table, 2V, a Global Youth Media Initiative, and then, of course, Poets Notes. I got this from my boy Fly, Ty, and I'm trying to get him some Hartford poets to come up there. So I've asked the principal at Weaver, and I've asked the chairperson of the school governance council at Hartford High. But if anybody knows any youth poets age 16 plus, point them in your girl's direction. There's some things popping
Yes.
on, and if they want to spit, I know a spot.
I love it. I freaking love it. So y'all hear that? If y'all are in the Hartford area, hit her up so you can get in the New Haven area, expand your network, and be able to express yourself on that mic and stuff. Like I love it,
Yes, and hook up with
100%.
other
Yes.
poets who are doing things. It's always good to connect. It's always good to create community. And like you said, you increase your network, you increase your net worth. So you have to understand how
Yes.
important it is when you have a gift or a talent that you stay connected to the
Mhm.
top of the game. So you gotta find out where the top of the game at. Because no matter what, you're not at the top. We
Right.
always
And
strive
there's
for it.
money. And there's money out there to,
There are
like people
contests, there
feel
are
like you gotta be
competitions.
starving to be an artist, but you don't necessarily always have to. It's just really about the value that you place on what you have to offer,
Yes.
because there is money out there to be made. There are grants, there are different type of ways in order to fund your work. And like I just feel like I don't know if I'm just getting into this whole grant thing or what, but I feel like I've been seeing a lot of grant opportunities for artists
Yeah.
recently. I just found out I did not get a grant that was for artists, and that's okay. Because that's one out of three. I'm praying that I get the other ones, but I'm just saying that they was just talking about how the response that they got was very overwhelming, and they had to move some funds from other things in order to fund this grant because like they just wanted to be able to disperse the money, yeah, even more so, like
Yeah, it's a
people really
lot of
do need to be
artists,
connecting.
and at the end of the day, it is art that revitalizes the community, no matter what form or fashion, whether it's comedy, music,
True.
film, TV, books, dance, ribbon flying, praise dancing, choir
Yeah.
singing, like you name it, those are all variations of art. And oftentimes, when we are in our lowest moment, it is some type of creativity from another human being that lifts up out of that thing. So it's always important to
Yeah,
try to
that's
make
true.
sure that these big corporations are supporting art because y'all want us to
Yes, they are.
save everybody. You want us to keep everybody entertained, but then you be acting like you don't want to pay nobody. Y'all better stop playing.
I know that's right. Pay artists. Yes. Pay them. Yes. Like give them
Pay
all
the
the
artist.
money. Like I'm with it, like 100%, because I agree with you about how art basically makes the world go round. And they always say life art imitates life, life imitates art. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know.
Both.
Like, life
Both.
imitates art. No. Yeah, anyways, both. Yeah. So that's the thing about it. They're both interchangeable, like you cannot get movies without having things happening in real life. You cannot get poetry without things happening in real life. Even if it's not your story, it is still something somewhere that has happened, and it exists. So, art imitates life. Yeah, that's what it is. Now I got it. So, at the end of the day, there's lots of room and space for growth. for more artists to begin to emerge, for artists to grow, their business when it comes to all of this stuff. And they need to just like, do you have any resources for where people can go and look for grants for artists or anything like that? Are you aware of
Definitely.
anything?
You can go to the Coalition of the Arts. They have a
Okay.
website. You can go to the Greater Hartford Arts Council. Um, and if you go to the Greater Hartford Arts Council website, you will find what grants are available, and they will connect you to whatever website or organization has funding available for you. But definitely, the Coalition of the Arts. There's anything that is a national arts organization, because it gets broken down into forms as well.
Mm.
So you
Mm.
can have a National Music Alliance, National Dance Alliance, National Theater, but whatever is national is also local. So you
Right.
want to make sure that if you're serious about your craft, you need to keep up with these organizations, because
Mm.
they're the ones who get the money that goes out. And if you're
Yes.
not aware of what types of organizations are around for your field, then I would definitely start with the Arts Council. I would start with the Coalition of the Arts and just kind of and work your way around, because there's a couple different ones, but that'll definitely get you pointed into the right direction, and from there you can do your research.
Right. I love that. I love that so much. So thank you so much for those resources, sis. Thank you so much for that wonderful workshop. We're gonna go show our sponsors some love. Make sure you submit your paperwork, girl, so I could
Yeah.
get you on, with these ad sponsorships and things like that. Thank you so much, sis, for always just being open to sharing, your heart, your passion, just everything. I appreciate you. 100.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
so much for the platform. Thank you for reaching out to me. As always, I'm here. I'm about to go cook up some more workshops so we can get topics
Yes.
are gonna get hot. Shoot,
Okay.
I'm ready for twerk class.
I love it. I
I'm
freaking
throwing it
love
over
it,
my shoulder.
sis. you know. Yo, yes, mad life. Like, I just freaking love it so much. Thank you. I wish you a wonderful rest of the night, sis. I wish you much success with everything that you touch. If there's anybody that's interested in connecting with this sister, please do so. She has a like just so much a plethora of wealth of information to share with you all, and passion and love. Shay, have a wonderful night. Let's give our sponsors some love. Pieces.
All right. Peace.
And thank you to our sponsors for the Yananomics podcast. This sponsor is Rashidi Lucario, a credit repair specialist for RKT appraisals. Our next sponsor is Ms. Carol Kelly, educator and entrepreneur for They Call Me Mrs. Kelly. If you're not familiar with her, she's an amazing person. She does amazing things, and she even helped my son with virtual tutoring. So do hit her up if you are in need or you're looking at homeschooling. Hit her up. She is wonderful when it comes to that with providing resources and education. As well, thank you to our sponsor, Ms. Nell and Mrs. Nell and Mr. Morton Barrett, who are marriage and youth motivators for MLB Speaks. They actually just became one of our advertising sponsors, and they will be doing our workshop soon. They are Teach Me Tuesday workshop facilitators. So do tune in for our next workshop, because they are our next workshop facilitators. I don't remember the date off the top of my head, but thank you so much. And they are really wonderful. Check them out at www.mlbspeaks.com. And of course, yours truly, Empress Ayana, the Yananomics podcast visionary. I am a lifestyle enrichment specialist for my umbrella organization, which is Onyx Restorative Justice. Our tagline is empowering excellence and community advancement. Some of the services that I offer are small business development as well as wellness, because our ultimate goal with Onyx Restorative Justice is to see our people live to their potential, divine potential, holistically. And if there's anyone that has a small business owner that is an entrepreneur, please do hit us up and learn more about our advertising sponsorship opportunities. We have a tier for anybody, like all different, um, like whatever your financial situation may be. We do have a tier for you, $125, $75, and our lowest one, $50. We have two different designs for you. We have our essential level design, which you could get for $50 and $75, and also your gold level design, which you can get for $125. So do hit me up if you'd like to learn more about that. Now, if there's anybody that's interested in becoming a Yananomics Podcast Teach Me Tuesday facilitator, we do have an orientation coming up on Sunday, March 13th at 6 o'clock on Zoom. So do hit me up if you are interested in that. Join us and everything. I can send you this flyer directly, or you can look inside the group and you'll see the flyer. But if you would like for me to send this to you, do let me know. I would love that. Anybody that is a facilitator, you do get a lot of different free and discounted services. I won't say a lot because it's not like we have like so many services. I'm just saying there are lots of opportunities for you to expand your business within here, and also like build your facilitator skills, your workshop facilitator skills. You do not have to have any expertise in terms of facilitating a workshop in order to become a facilitator, because I help you to build that expertise. Do hit me up if you are interested in any small business development services or holistic wellness services. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in tonight to the Yananomics podcast show. Don't tell, created and facilitated by Ms. Tashala Williams. Thank you. I am your host and visionary, Empress Ayana. Peace.